everybody, welcome to my channel and welcome to day 24 of my 25 Days of Craftmas series. Today I'm showing you how to make this Christmas porch sign. This sign is so cute for Christmas, but I love that you can switch out the sign and garland and use it for lots of other holidays. This project isn't hard, but it does take some time. It requires just a few straight cuts of wood, so even a beginner woodworker can do this. Now let's go take a look at the supply list and get started. For this project, you'll need an 8-inch square piece of wood, a 12-inch square piece of wood, and a 4-foot piece of wood cut from a 4x4-inch post, a wooden plaque for the sign, a post cap, a metal plant hanger, and mine came with the hanging hooks, the eye hooks, and the screws. You'll also need some adhesive vinyl, and the color doesn't matter, some transfer tape, your weeding tool and scraper, paint and brushes, wood glue, a clear protective finish is optional, Christmas garland, drill and screws, and of course, your Cricut, a cutting mat, and the cut file. So grab your supplies and head over to your computer. The first thing we need to do is grab the SVG file we'll be using for this project. You can get it for free on my blog at burtonavenue.com. I keep all the SVG files for the projects I make and share in my free SVG library. These files will work with all kinds of cutting machines and they're free to everyone. Once you're on my site, just go to Free SVG Files and then Free SVG Library. You will need a password to get into the library, and there are instructions on the screen if you need to get one. For this project, we're going to be using the cut file called Fresh Christmas Trees BA2124. To find it, just use your browser search and enter 2124. Once you found the file, go ahead and click on that link, and the files will be downloaded onto your computer. So I'm going to show you how to set up and cut this design in Cricut Design Space. If you're not sure how to unzip and import designs into Cricut Design Space, be sure to check out my step-by-step tutorial. So this is what the design will look like when you first import it onto your Canvas screen. So now we need to resize it so that it will work with our project. Now I'm going to be putting this design on a wooden plaque, and it has an interesting shape to it. So I'm going to use a couple of ovals to try and recreate the shape of my sign. It's not going to be exact, but it will give me a good idea of what size to make my design. So now this shape that I created is the same size as my wooden sign. It measures 13.125 across and 7.625 high. So once you've gotten this far, you can click on Arrange and choose Send to Back so that you can see your design. And then you can just drag on these arrows and resize your design until it looks good. Once you're happy with the placement of the design, we need to turn this into a stencil. And you can do that by selecting both the shape and the design and right-clicking and choosing Attach. And that will just lock all of those pieces inside of that shape. And then when we go cut our vinyl and start to weed it, we will peel out the letters and the shapes, and then we'll be left with a stencil. And that is the last thing we need to do on this Canvas screen. So now you can click on the green Make It button. And then you'll be taken to this screen. And this is just a warning that the size of our design is bigger than a regular mat. And we're going to need to use a larger size mat and a bigger piece of vinyl. So click on OK. And you'll see over here it's telling us to use a 12-inch by 24-inch mat. And if you scroll down here a little bit, you'll see that we need to use a piece of vinyl that's at least 14 inches tall and at least 8 inches wide. So if everything looks good on this screen, you can click on the green Continue button. And once Design Space finds your Cricut, you'll be taken to this screen. Make sure your dial is set to vinyl, and then you can go load your cutting mat. So place a piece of vinyl on your cutting mat and smooth it down. Load it into your Cricut by pressing the up and down arrow button. When your Cricut is ready to cut, you'll see the C button light up. Press that and the machine will begin cutting. When everything has been cut, you can press the up and down arrow button again to unload your mat. Remove the vinyl from your cutting mat and trim away any unused portion of the vinyl. Then weed away the excess vinyl from around the design. Since this is a stencil, you'll be pulling out the letters and the shapes from inside of the oval shape. You can use a weeding tool to help make this step a little bit easier. Next, place a piece of transfer tape sticky side up on your work surface and then place the vinyl on top of that. Rub over the design firmly with your scraper and then trim off the excess transfer tape and vinyl backing. Next, we're going to work on assembling the post and the base of the sign. So you'll need a 4-foot section cut from a 4x4 inch post, a 12-inch square piece of wood, and an 8-inch square piece of wood. Mark the center of each piece of wood by drawing a diagonal line from corner to corner. You'll want to mark the front and backs of both of the squares. And then you'll just need to mark one side of the 4-foot post. It's hard to see the diagonal lines on the 4-foot post, but this is what it would look like. Next, drill a pilot hole through the centers of each X. You'll want to drill through the post about 1.5 inches and all the way through both of the squares. Add some glue onto the smaller square and then press that onto the larger square. Screw the two pieces together while the glue dries. Make sure the lines on the squares match up. Once the glue dries, you can remove the screw. Flip the two squares over so the larger square is on top. Then put the post in the center of the square and draw an outline of the post. You can match up the corners of the post with the diagonal lines to help you center the post. Remove the post and make 4 marks inside of the square you just drew. Then drill through each of those holes. You'll want to drill all the way through both of the squares. There should now be 5 holes in your wooden squares. Next, add some glue to the middle of the smaller square. Put a screw through the center hole of the square and screw the post to your squares. You should have drilled a pilot hole in the post, so it should be pretty easy to screw all the pieces together. Make sure the post is still centered on the smaller square, and once you've done that, you can put screws in the other 4 holes and tighten them up. Next, you can paint your post. I'm going to use black spray paint for mine, but you could also brush on black paint. You'll also need to paint the wooden plaque white, and it will probably take 2 to 3 coats. Painting the back is optional, but I like to do just 1 coat to make it look nice and finished. Once the white paint has dried, it's time to apply our stencil. So grab your vinyl design and pull off the vinyl backing. Position the design on the wood. To center the design, you can match up the edges of the oval with the edges of the sign. Rub over your design with your scraper, and then carefully pull off the transfer tape. Rub over the design a few more times. Next, you'll want to paint over the stencil with a light coat of white paint, and this should help prevent bleeding. Once the white paint is dry, you can fill in the stencil with your colored paints. You'll want to do a couple of light coats rather than one thick, heavy coat. When the paint is dry to the touch, you can carefully pull off the vinyl stencil. Use a weeding tool or craft knife to remove any pieces that are left behind. You can also spray on a protective finish if you want. Now we're going to assemble the sign. There are 3 holes for hooks on the bracket I'm using. I'm going to use the 2 outermost holes to hang my sign. You'll want to make marks on your sign that correspond with the holes on the bracket. Then drill pilot holes into each of the marks. Screw an eye hook into each of the pilot holes. Next, place the bracket on your post and mark the screw holes. Drill some pilot holes and then attach the bracket with the included screws. I found the cutest solar light to use as a post cap, and it's just perfect for this sign. You can attach the post cap to the top of the post with 2 screws. Wrap some garland around the post and secure it in place. The garland I used had a loop at each end, so it was easy to attach to the post. I just put a screw at the top of the post inside the loop. Then I wrapped the garland around the post and pulled it tight. When I got to the bottom, I added another screw. The garland felt secure to me. But if you're worried about it coming off, you can also glue the garland into place. To finish off the sign, you'll place the hanging hooks into the bracket holes. Then, put the hanging hooks through the eye hooks on the sign, and this sign is finished. And I just love how it turned out. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell so you'll get notified each time I post something new.